Welcome to Functional Philosophy, the show in which I, Charles II, explain and apply Ayn Rand's philosophy, objectivism. If you'd like to ask me a question on objectivism or its application, just go to charles2.com/contact. And my last name is spelled T as in tango, E as in echo, and W as in whiskey. Why do we enjoy arbitrary things? By this, for example, I mean that I enjoy building and painting plastic figures. I understand that things like food please us physically because they are required for survival, and that solving certain problems can please us mentally, as that is also required for survival. In building plastic miniatures, I am, however, in no way contributing to my life or odds of survival, other than by the fact that I enjoy it. Isn't this completely irrational? Well, for you it's irrational because you're doing something whose validity you haven't established. But there's nothing irrational about doing things like building and painting plastic figures. I'll give you an example of something seemingly even more arbitrary that I like. I like downloading and installing software updates. Most people find it annoying to have to download and install updates, but I love it, and I manually install updates for that reason. I enjoy this for the same reason I enjoy the video game series Sniper Elite. The series' main feature is that it follows the trajectory of your bullet after you fire it all the way to impact, and then it shows the consequences. It goes into X-ray vision and shows bone shattering and all of the other consequences of being shot. Now, both installation progress bars and slow-motion sniper shots illustrate the same thing to me, and that is inexorable causality. They show things acting in accordance with what they are. You set up your shot, you pull the trigger, and then you watch as things play out. To me, this isolates the predictability of nature. Both that game and software installation progress bars, to me, manifest a metaphysical principle. And that's life-affirming for the same reason art is life-affirming. You see something desirable or true, and it helps you keep in mind that that thing is desirable and therefore helps you act to pursue it, motivates you to act to pursue it, or helps you keep in mind the truth. So presumably you're getting something like that out of building and painting your plastic figures. There's some reason you enjoy building those plastic figures. Everything has a cause. You don't enjoy that activity for no reason. And it's a lot easier to figure out than you probably think. Introspecting the cause of your emotions isn't that hard. So do that, figure out why you like your miniatures, and then if you realize you're getting pleasure from engaging in it for a rational reason, you will be able to enjoy it all the more. And if you realize you enjoy it for a bad reason, then you'll be able to stop. Now you go on, what dictates our mental wants? Why do I want to be a teacher? I can tell you the reason I enjoy it. I can, however, not tell you why those reasons are more enjoyable to me than the reasons I like something else for, and why I chose teaching as my job rather than something else that I enjoy less but still enjoy. The only reason I can, off the top of my head, come up with is a determinist one, and that probably isn't. And that is probably not very objectivist. Existing in a factual context is not determinism. It's not determinism to be unable to choose your options. Determinism means you don't have options. So if for some biological or environmental reason you developed the passion you have, that's not determinism. And it's not irrational. It's non-rational. The question of reason doesn't apply, it's simply a fact. Now, why people develop the passions they do, I don't know. It could be that there's some biological component. It could be environmental. You develop some attachment when you're young. Or it could be you don't develop a passion until you confront the issue explicitly when you're older. But none of these cases are irrational. If you first check to make sure that what you enjoy is productive, it's life-affirming, and so long as it is, you simply take the fact that you're passionate about it as a fact of reality, which it is, regardless of where it comes from. And if you haven't developed a passion yet, then you choose one in accordance with your other values. There's nothing irrational or deterministic about accepting facts, including facts that dictate your values. You didn't choose what size your hands are, and that dictates what kind of gloves, what size of gloves you're going to value. Is that irrational? No. So the same thing here, whether biological or environmental, doesn't matter. As far as you're concerned now, you like what you like, and as long as that activity falls within the range of productive, life-affirming careers, then you go with that. As should be clear from my answer to the previous part of this question, I don't mean that if you just enjoy something, go with it. You should know why you like it, not in the sense that you can trace your passion back to some childhood experience, but that you know the ideas behind it, that you know you like teaching because you enjoy organizing ideas and taking into account other people's context of knowledge in order to most efficiently communicate ideas. You just have to know that you like it for a life-affirming reason, not why that particular life-affirming activity appeals to you over any other. Why is libel, or indirect force in general, force? Well, what makes something force in the rights-violating sense? The fact that it prevents someone from volitionally adhering to the facts of reality. Now, physical force does this directly. You observe facts about the world, you form a judgment about what your life requires based on those facts, and you act on that judgment. You start a business, let's say, and now the government says you can't start that business. If you ignore them, eventually they will send the police to physically arrest you. So that's direct force. It is the direct prevention of your adhering in action to the facts of reality. Now, what is indirect force, such as fraud and libel? Why does Ayn Rand call this indirect? Direct and indirect are relational concepts. Direct presupposes some destination, as does indirect. You go directly to somewhere. There's no just going directly on its own. That doesn't make any sense. That's incoherent. You go directly to something. So where does directness or indirectness terminate here? In action in the physical world. So those cops coming to arrest you, putting handcuffs on you, or somebody punching you in the face, that's direct. Directly in the physical world. Now, indirect force isn't directly in the physical world. It's indirect because it corrupts that process of volitionally adhering to the facts of reality earlier on. Direct physical force prevents you at the action stage, the final stage. Indirect force prevents you from acting on the basis of reality at the observation of facts stage. And so it's indirect. So somebody who engages in fraud, for instance, says he'll sell you a car for $10,000, and so, on the basis of that fact, you give him $10,000 and then he runs off with it. Now that's indirect because he gave you a false fact, that being that he would give you a car in exchange for your money, which led to your taking action in the world, giving him the money, which you wouldn't have taken if you knew the actual facts. So it's indirect from the perspective of action in the physical world. Now, libel works the same way. You lie about somebody, preventing people from acting on the basis of fact. You indirectly prevent their adhering to the facts of reality in action. Now, libel has to be a concrete claim. It can't be an abstract claim, for reasons I partially explained in a previous episode. In that episode, I explained how the issue of proof was involved. If somebody lies about a concrete, you have a chance of proving that he lied about it because you can show that he knew something was false because it involves direct perception. If somebody says, I saw him come out of that meeting, I know he was there, but then you find out this guy was in another state at the time, then you can prove that he's lying. But regarding some abstract claim, that involves a mental process, not direct observation. And so even if somebody is being dishonest, you can't prove what's going on in his mind. But there's a deeper issue here, and it's that perception is irreducible epistemically. We start at the level of perception. We derive reason from perception, and then turn it around and apply it to perception, to the integration of things we perceive. Now, the reason libel has to be a concrete claim is that perception of concretes is the irreducible base of our awareness. If somebody makes a false but abstract claim, he has engaged in an irrational process. But so long as he's only speaking, so long as it's just speech, his engaging in an irrational process doesn't prevent you from being rational. However, if someone lies about a concrete, you can't reason your way out of that, because that's not a method. That's not something you can apply anywhere. You have to have seen the concrete. If somebody claims to have witnessed a murder, that's not an issue of applying a method, which anybody can do at any time. You had to be there and see what he saw. So if he's lying about what he saw, there's nothing you can do about that, because perceptions are the basis of awareness. They are the elements of thought. They are what you are thinking about. So if somebody says, I'm a communist in the abstract sense, which is the example I used before, you can neither prove that he came to that conclusion dishonestly, nor does it prevent you from coming to the conclusion that I'm not a communist. Because no matter how irrational he is, he can't deny you your ability to be rational, assuming all he's doing is speaking. But if he claims that I am a member of the Communist Party because he saw me come out of a Communist Party meeting wearing a Communist Party badge, that is indirect force, because he's corrupting the very basis of your connection to reality. He is falsifying facts and thereby forcibly preventing you from adhering to the facts of reality. Now, there are cases where lying about concretes is like deliberately coming to a false abstract conclusion. Suppose someone tells me he's going to sell me a car, but then he pulls out a banana and he says, here you go, this is the car. Well, he's not forcibly preventing me from adhering to the facts of reality, because there, I'm in a position to observe the fact. This isn't a car, it's a banana. But when someone makes a concrete claim that you can't verify, then if he's lying, he is violating your rights, because he is actually preventing you from adhering to the facts of reality. Someone asked me to talk about the concept of moral luck. Well, moral luck is the idea that certain people are judged as more or less moral purely by luck. Take two drunk drivers. One ends up killing somebody, the other doesn't. We judge the first as more immoral than the second because the first one killed someone, even though they both took the same actions in the same context. So this first guy is more immoral for reasons he had no control over. Well, I reject this entirely. I would judge both of those people exactly the same way. As Harry Binswanger has said, reason is prospective, not retrospective, and morality is the same way, because morality really just reduces to being rational. You are moral or immoral based on what you could have predicted at the time you took your action. For the same reason, you're rational or irrational based on your judgment, given the knowledge you had at the time you made it. So if you decided not to buy a lottery ticket because you knew your chances were 1 in a million, but then it turned out that was the winning lottery ticket, you wouldn't say that you were irrational because you didn't buy that lottery ticket, because reason is prospective. It's about what's going to happen in the future based on what you know now. You don't go back in time and say, oh, I was irrational for not buying that lottery ticket. In the same way that you could be pursuing your goals in life and you walk out the front door one morning and a meteorite hits you in the head and kills you. Well, then what? Would you say, wow, that person, I guess, ended up being immoral? Because if he'd sat at home and watched TV instead of pursuing his career, he'd still be alive. That's obviously ridiculous. So no, I judge all drunk drivers the same way, in the context of their blood alcohol level. I'm not saying I don't distinguish there. I'm just using the drunk driving example as an example. I don't actually subscribe to the dogma that drunk driving is this horrible thing that's worse than anything else you can do while driving. People drive far more dangerously based on sleep deprivation and being distracted while changing the radio station than many people do while driving with illegal blood alcohol levels. Obviously, there's a level at which you've had so much that driving is far more unsafe than any of those other things, but there are also levels of intoxication, illegal levels, that are far safer than how most people regularly drive. So I was just using that as an example. I don't partake in the dogmatic hysteria over drunk driving. So moral luck as a concept I throw out, because I don't judge people for things they have no control over. And there are things people do have control over. If the world were utterly unpredictable, and you had no idea what the consequences of your actions were going to be, then there would be no such thing as morality. But most of the time, you can predict the consequences of your actions within a range, and so you should act on that knowledge, and that's what morality is. If you'd like to keep up with everything I do, just go to charles2.com. If you'd like to enable me to do more, just go to patreon.com/charles2 and become a supporter. Thanks for listening.